Hi Harini, welcome to Weave Her Way, which is House of Chicken Curry's podcast to support our fellow women entrepreneurs. And I don't think you need an introduction because you're building one of the fastest growing skincare brands in the country, which I'm personally a customer of. And I think Earth Rhythm, everyone knows about it, and what you've done is phenomenal. I'll let you take the lead here to tell us all about how you exactly started, what motivated you, and what led you onto this entrepreneurial journey.
Okay, hi Akriti. Thank you for having me here today. I think it's a very, I don't know, just before the shoot, we were just discussing, and it's quite, surprising to know that, a lot more women founders are coming up with, mom and daughter and dad and daughter. And similarly, I started this venture, I think, back in 2015 in my house, right from the kitchen, right? To be all honest about my my career, I think I was a banker by profession. I started my career as a banker, but I didn't, I just have no courage to boast about my banking career because it was hardly for 1 year that I worked in a bank. Yeah. And then I became a full-time homemaker for about almost 7-8 years. Yeah. A happy homemaker, mom to 2 boys. And, my life was going, literally the way I wanted. I think in 2015, when I relocated to Delhi was the time I think I figured out that, I had to do something simply because I had a lot of free time in my hand. My kids were going to school. And that was also a time where I was going through a lot, in my personal life. Like my mom had passed away and stuff like that. So I wanted to put my mind to use at a very, very productive thing which I can do. And I took up soap making as a hobby. Wow. And I think that's how my, my entry into, making skincare even started, right? Yeah. Just like any kitchen brand, I put a bunch of ingredients together and tried to make something, and boom, it was a disaster. It was nothing even close to a soap. But then after a couple of tries, I figured how to make a soap which actually lathers. Wow. So I think that was the stepping stone to starting something on my own. Fast forward, I think from 2015 to 18, I survived as a homegrown entrepreneur. When I say homegrown, literally sitting at home, that's what I mean, right? And then I think, my dad's entry comes where, he comes and he was like, my dad was always skeptical about the fact of me selling soaps. And he was like, Harini, do you even think there's a market for people who'd pay like $500 for a bar of soap? And do you think you'll be able to do this sustainably? I honestly didn't have an answer to his question back then. But I think what led me to keep doing what I really liked was the passion behind it. So it's safe to say that, Earth Rhythm was a passion-driven business, which clearly started out as a passion project, and today where we are.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing how there's so many similarities in, like entrepreneurs you meet, because my mother is my co-founder, your dad is your co-founder. So we're both working with parents, and also I think somewhere like my mom was a homemaker for 25 years, right? So that feeling that you just explained, and the whole journey of that, you were a happy homemaker, and that was the same thing with my mom. No one forced her to leave her job, but she left it because I came into her life, and she felt that I want to just give my daughter my time. Then my brother happened and he came into her life. And she could just never get back. But eventually there was this feeling inside her that made her feel that, okay, like, what's my purpose? Like, I also want to put my purpose into something. And it does not mean money, right? It does not have to do with money at all. It's just feeling and creating your own identity. And I've seen that with her. And now I think I've never seen her happier. Right. Ever since we've started, she's so happy. She's probably at work before me, leaving office after me. And I'm telling her that because of you, I'm pressured to working more. I don't have balance.
Oh, we should actually cover the typical pain points of working with parents.
Yeah. So, there's so many times I tell her that because of you, I look like the bad co-founder because, I want to have certain balance and you have no balance.
Yes.
I
can so much relate to you. Yeah. I think it's the very similar story, right? Like I said, we should cover this topic of working with parents, because a lot of people have asked me, Harini, just tell me this one thing, including my investors who asked me that, how do you manage to work with your dad? I mean, I can never do that at all. Yeah. So, it has a plus and a minus to it, right?
Now that we've started talking about it, why don't you give us your take on it, then I can add my...
Sure, definitely. So I think with my dad, right, like I said, there's always a plus and minus, right? The plus being the biggest plus, that you have the biggest cheerleader whom you can rely on, trust. You generally don't have these kind of issues when you bring a co-founder into the company. How much can you trust, how much is okay, how much is not okay. You don't have such issues because you always know that he's your own father or your mother, and they're always going to have your back, right? So I think that's one of the biggest advantage when you work with parents. The downside being that a dad always thinks that I need to protect my daughter. Right, the very protective by nature. I think that's I won't call it a downside. One of the challenges that I have, because my risk appetite could be more bullish than my dad's. My dad is always wanting to, I call him the speed breaker of the company, right? Anything that we decide, my dad comes as a speed breaker and he says slow down, no budget. So it's like he's the speed breaker. And you need such speed breakers in your life, because you always can't keep you can't go in full speed and then have a crash, which is something that you don't want. So I think that way working with parents are slightly tricky. But like you said, I have 2 kids, and my work-life balance, I turn off my mind on Fridays and it turns on again only on Monday morning.
I can imagine.
And my dad is like, he sits at night 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., 12 a.m., 1 a.m. and he's going on writing mails. And my teammates are like, Harini, the mail came at 2 a.m. I'm like, you don't have to respond, it's fine. So so I think you can't blame them. I think because parents being parents, they're very excited. Like us, I think he is also a first generation entrepreneur, right? So the excitement of working with a dad, I think we're really blessed, Akriti, to be very honest.
For sure, I couldn't agree more. I think whenever I get this question from everyone, and my answer is always that I can't imagine if this could have been built without my mom, because as much as I wanted to succeed, she wanted me to succeed and her to succeed even more for me.
Absolutely.
So the blessings or the manifestation is double. Because I'm, manifesting my dream, but she is with me manifesting my dream.
Correct.
So that power that, having your parent with you, I don't think I can put it into words, the blessing that it is, right? And obviously, we have our days in terms of it being a problem. Work-life balance is one where obviously we've completely lost the balance at home. Our office conversations are taken to home. There are no home conversations left anymore. I think our family is irritated with us because everyone else is having fun at a dinner table and both of us are only discussing work. So obviously there are those cons, but I think that all that comes from excitement of building something.
Right.
And because we're also fairly new, it's a 3-year-old business. Eventually, I hope, we will, I'm sure we'll reach some sort of balance. But right now, we're in the stage where every conversation is a work conversation for us. And I think, we have our days, we have our fights also. But
I was about to actually ask you that, saying that, what do you do for arguments with parents?
We have our arguments, we have our days. It's not like we don't have conflicts. But I think because the foundation of what we built is that mom's role is more on the production and operation side. Mine is more on the marketing and business development, finance side of things.
Right.
So the roles are very distinct also. So there is this certain respect that in this area, she's a better person.
Yeah.
So I think that is what keeps it going. And I know that I cannot take a better call than her in that area. And somewhere she also knows that. So both of us kind of try to learn from each other in the area we feel we lack in.
Absolutely.
Because if that ego comes in, that I could have done this alone, that it will never work.
Absolutely.
We have to respect that we could not have done this alone, right? The fact that we are here today or wherever, we'll be 2, 3, 5 years from now, it's because we had this support or have this support.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't agree more as well, right? So I think for me also, like in your case, your mom was in the production. In my case, I am into production, right? Okay. So I am the product person in the company. So when it comes to product, my dad, he can't even pronounce hyaluronic acid, niacinamide, any of these things. All he knows is serum, and he keeps on asking me, how many products do you women use? I go on, keep launching products. But ultimately, when it comes to, because he was a banker, he looks after finance, operations and all of that. And I don't even step into that area. That's not even, numbers is not my game, right? Yeah. So we clearly draw that line and our arguments are always, in terms of me wanting more budget and he not giving me the budget and vice versa. So, I think that's the most important thing. I mean, we know where we are good at and where we lack, and it becomes really easy to work with parents that way. And like I said, nobody can back you up like your own parents.
For
you know,
sure.
that's a given, right?
Yeah.
They may overstep and do it, but they'll never let you down.
Yeah, for sure. I think, and eventually the willingness to learn, whether it's, you know, our parents or us, if it's there, I think there's no way that you can't work with together or with parents. If you're willing to learn from them, and in fact, I feel like my mom's willing to learn from our team or me or anyone, you know.
Yes.
Like my mom started now using Excel sheets, Google Drive, email. So all this for her is like a completely new thing, right? And she would not reply to email. So I would really like pressure her at home that you're not understanding. You need to start learning how to use emails. And now it's like 3 months down the line, she's coming and telling me, I completely agree with you. You know, without emails, it's so difficult.
Yeah.
So, you know, that switch, it's so exciting to see
Yes.
them learn
Yes.
the new age technologies or the
Yes.
new age ways of, you know, running a business or working, whether it's as simple as an email.
Right.
You know, for my mom, that's something that she was never using on a day-to-day basis. So, yeah, I mean, it's really exciting.
I think also one more beautiful thing about startups specifically, you know, like yours and mine is, Kriti, the kind of evolution that we see in the women around us, right?
Yeah.
That's something extremely beautiful, right? And it's very fulfilling. More than beautiful, it's very fulfilling as to the reason why we start a company in the first place, right?
Yeah.
For example, in your case, I can understand the kind of journey that your mom could have gone through, the entire process of, you know, coming out of that, you know, house space setup and then stepping into a workplace where, you know, she's giving her full time for work and that learning technology, all of that, right? So in my case, when I started out, when I just stepped out of the house, and when I wanted to build a team, right? It was very funny. Like, it was just me and dad. And my dad said, Harini, you know what? You need one more person who will help you around. You can't be making the products and packing it and dishwashing it. Like, I was everything in the company, right? Right from the packer, you know, dishwasher, delivery boy, everything was me. So, my dad was like, you know, we need to get you know, one more resource. And where do we go, right? So at that point of time when we started, Akriti, we were still at home, right? And you can't really find skilled white-collar resources who will come to your house, sit in your bedroom and work. I mean, maybe it could, but I didn't know where to find that resource, right? I wanted a girl who will help me with all my chota mota kaam at home, right? So I just went to the security guard in the condo where I live in and I was like, भैया मुझे एक लड़की चाहिए काम के लिए. So he was like, why do you, दीदी क्या काम है? So I was like, आप भेज दो मैं खुद देख लेता हूँ. So the next day morning there was a line of girls outside my door and these were all maids and they were all looking for jadu pocha bartan because obviously in a condo what kind of you know people do you get? And out of all those girls I kept on rejecting and then I spotted one girl who was this naive, timid little young girl who must be, when I met her she was 21, as young as that, just landed from Sundarbans, which is a small tiny little village in, you know, West Bengal. And she was looking for a jadu pocha bartan job. And I asked her, are you educated? I mean, can you read and write English? She said, मैं graduate हूँ दीदी. I was shocked. I asked her, you're a graduate and you're looking for jadu pocha bartan. Why? What is the reason? And she said that गाँव से हूँ, English I can only read. I can't speak English. I can't, you know, so I can't work anywhere outside. So I'm happy with this. So I said, you're selected. The next day morning she came. I gave her a bunch of invoices and I told her, I gave her half an hour time and I said, tell me what you understood. After half an hour she told me, दीदी ये कोई बिल लग रहा है, किसी ने साबुन ऑर्डर किया, किसी ने लिप बाम ऑर्डर किया है, ये इतना समझ आ रहा है. So I said, you're double selected. So from there I trained, her name was Moumita. I trained Moumita to understand the process in the company as to how you manufacture, how you pack, how you dispatch and what customers expect and how you need to figure out how you work in an organization. Within 1-2 months she came to me and my dad and she was telling, uncle हमारे company में process होना चाहिए. COD order सिर्फ Friday को करेंगे, prepaid order Monday to Thursday करेंगे. The journey of seeing Moumita grow, today she's still there in the company, right? She leads a team of almost 15-20 people on the production floor. And you know, her evolution of coming in that timid little girl from a village to growing into that woman who's so confident right now and can lead a team. I think that's more fulfilling for us when we see women actually evolve right in front of us.
100%. And I think think my mom like always says this, like in our company we have a lot of girls who are now, like we have a team of about 120 people. So when we started, this is exactly the same story, right? We started from the basement of our home. So we started in COVID, and at that time a lot of like domestic help around, the guards and the helpers, their kids had lost jobs. So they were sitting at home, they could not go far away. Ab wo colony ke aaspaas hi rehte hain sare domestic help and all. So that's how, like when we needed one person, my mom got one person involved. Ki acha, you send your daughter. Usne college tak padhai ki. Acha, you send your son. So the first 4-5 people like who started from our home with us were actually around us. Right from the community around us, and all educated people, all smart people, like and all of them are still there with us today as well.
They are the pillars, the real pillars.
And today you see them like lead teams. You see them understand softwares, like we're using an inventory management software, using a desktop, and they're coming in telling the HR or me कि हमारा email ID अलग बनवाओ, a sense of recognition कि हमें ID card दिलवाओ company का, because they feel so that they've achieved so much personal growth, that the attachment that I see and the evolution, right, like the word you use, evolution of them is what is fulfilling in our journey. And I would see like they would come to office like smiling and with such happy eyes, because for them to even say that we're going to office was a big thing. Everyone around them was going to do domestic jobs, but for them to say that we're going to an office, we're now a quality manager, or I'm a production manager. So half of them have fought with me or told me that manager lagao. Like it's a sense of recognition. And obviously we happily give that to them. They deserve it, because they feel proud of these small things that we don't even realize matter so much.
Absolutely.
So you were also saying that you're the product person, right, in your company, and we've all used the products. You're a sustainable, clean company. But for anyone who doesn't know what clean is, how would you describe clean products for a layman to understand?
Okay, so I think in the industry where I am operating in, Akriti, beauty and personal care, clean, green, all these are heavily abused words, right? Because it's very subjective. What's clean to you may not be clean to me, and what's clean to me may not be clean to you. And there are certain boards in today's scenario, but back in the day, even when we started in 2015, there were hardly any boards that were regulating all these things in India specifically, right? Into what is clean, what is green, and any of those things. So in such a scenario, when we came in, right, we've had a our own growth journey, evolution in terms of how Earth Rhythm started to where it is today, right? When we started back in the day, I still remember the only feedback that I used to get when I used to be a home-based entrepreneur was, Harini, your products are extremely good. It feels very natural and nice, but why do you use plastic? We don't want plastic packaging in your products. Sorry. So that was one product. That was one feedback that constantly kept coming to me, right? And when I started out, and when I launched the brand in 2019, back in the day it was called Soapworks when I was a home-based entrepreneur. And when we launched in 2019 as Earth Rhythm, I had to, literally tell consumers why another brand is coming into the market, right? We already had, huge brands like MamaEarth and Wows who are already operating at a large scale. So why is another brand? What are we even trying to prove a point here? So I think at that scenario, for me, it was very, very clear that I wanted to tell consumers through sustainability the entire story of cleanliness. So if something is safe on your soil, which is safe for the earth, obviously it has to be safe for you as well, right? Something which is biodegradable, something which is, which can actually biodegrade into the environment, into the soil, that could potentially be very safe on your skin as well, right? So that's the theory behind Earth Rhythm's product, ecosystem altogether. So we built all our products. So the first product that we built was a shampoo bar, right? Now that was a very iconic product because for us, we were focusing more on sustainability. We wanted to reduce the plastic consumption that we were, utilizing through skincare and cosmetics as an industry. So can we replace one product in a consumer's bathroom, which is a shampoo bottle, from a liquid to a solid form, thereby thereby reducing plastics while ensuring the ingredients that is used to make the shampoo bar being 100% biodegradable. So which means the grey water which goes into the soil is biodegradable, right? So it is completely, it can break down and it can decompose into the soil. Now, which also means that it is very safe for human. So that's how we brought our own definition to sustainability.
Yeah.
But there's a catch in this. I think we, like I told you, we've had our own journey in terms of speaking about, sustainability and cleanliness to consumers through products.
Yeah.
One of which I think I still remember, I think back in 2020, one of the, consumers actually called us out heavily on Instagram. And, in social media today can actually make or break a brand, right? It's very, very, it's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
So she called us out and she said, back in the day, we were having a lot of glass packaging, right? It's very common for consumers to think plastic free ka matlab hota hi hai ki glass use karo. But when she called us out, she said this brand claims to actually talks about sustainability and claims sustainability and is actually using glass, which is way more unsustainable in terms of producing glass. So much energy is required. How can the brand be sustainable? This thought actually killed me, and I started doing a lot of research on glass and how glass is produced and all of that. And I figured that, come on, glass is not sustainable, and how can a brand be, how can we even claim sustainability when we're actually packaging everything in glass? And hence we moved to paper, and then we realized paper is actually breathable, and skincare products were actually getting spoiled, like it used to dry up and it used to a lot of issues with contamination and stuff like that, and paper wasn't an option either. And then we moved back to plastic, which means, look at the journey that we had. We started with the story of telling plastic free, and then we tried all packaging that is available. We tried tin, we tried paper, we tried glass, and then we reached back to plastic itself. And then we've realized in 2021 that, we should not be, there is no way that we can actually push in our day-to-day lifestyle. Plastic cannot, disappear from our lifestyle. Now, can we emphasis on how do we, effectively or smartly use plastic in our life? So we shifted all our packaging to PCR, which is post-consumer resin. Now we started bringing concepts in Earth Rhythm where consumers are having a refillable option. So when they finish the product, the inner pod is 100% recyclable, and that goes to the dustbin. So which means we wanted to ensure that, the consumer are actually using plastic, but more cautiously.
Talking about sustainability, you did mention some of the ways your brand obviously I think is way more sustainable than I think I've never even heard any of like skincare brands doing the kind of stuff that you're doing in India. And I'll definitely order and try the refillable pods. I think that's something really interesting, and that also shows that if you're taking these steps as a brand, as an established brand today, the customer is demanding for it, right? So that means definitely we're as a country moving towards the right practices, the most sustainable practices. Even in fashion, actually, there's this new concept, there's this new company called Real Love, if I'm not wrong. A lot of fashion brands have started basically partnering with them, and if you partner with them, any House of Chikankari customer basically who shopped in House of Chikankari kurta or an outfit can come and give it back, sell it back, the second hand garment on my website, but through Real Love. But for a slightly lesser price. Nice. So along with my website, I also have this sustainable market built for the same products that I already have, marketing spends done for, or say shoots done for. So I've seen a lot of brands now starting to do it. Exciting to see, like the space we're in and the kind of things that's happening.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And so what do you think, like in terms of like sustainability is obviously one huge and broad topic, and there's a lot of like definitions that everyone has. Also, I would say a millennial who gets influenced by probably the next reel that I see.
Yes.
There's just so much like content out there, even educating you about skincare, that as a viewer of that content, you're just bound to get confused that what is it that I'm supposed to put on my skin, what works, what doesn't work, and is Korean better, this better, or just simple moisturizer, So what would you like say, what is your skincare routine like, and also what do you think, what is a fad in this, all these things, and what is actually what people should be following?
I think first let me answer my routine. It's funny, but it's also true that I am the worst person when it comes to skincare. Right, I'm literally the low maintenance person. Right, for the longest time in my life, I've used. I'm telling this on a show, but I've used all kind of things like using lime on face and stuff like that back in the day when I was much younger. But I've never really, had anything called a routine. Simply, for the longest time, when you're brought up specifically down south in a very conservative environment, washing face and putting that talcum powder was the only skincare that you follow for the longest time, right? But yes, when I started getting into, making skincare, specifically, based on all these trends that is coming out and ingredient stories that we have, all of that, I think there's, like you said, there's so much information out there, and there is it's like just like your kitchen, right?
Yeah.
Tons and tons of ingredients. Every ingredient has a different flavor, different taste. But does it mean that you will eat everything? No, not really. You have your own likes and dislikes. You know what actually works for you. Similarly, in skincare, it's very essential to identify what works for you and just sticking to your favorites. And there's a reason why you should do it, right? I think nobody wants to keep messing around with skincare in terms of experimenting again and again and trying new products and stuff like that. Once you've found your hits and miss, I think you should stick to it. That's my first and number one thing that I always advocate to a lot of people. And the second thing is keep it as minimal as possible. Try to use multifunctional products. I think at Earth Rhythm, one more thing which we have started doing right now is we've started building multifunctional products. Why should we actually make a consumer use 10 products and make a 10 different, skincare routine, cleanse, and then again double cleanse, and then again, put a oil, put a serum, put a moisturizer, put a sunscreen. The list is long, and then if you want a toner somewhere, it comes in between. When you want a treatment, it comes somewhere in between. So hence, what we figured was there are certain basic elements of skincare routine which is non-negotiable. For example, moisturize and protect is non-negotiable. Whatever skin type you have, you need to moisturize your skin, you need to protect your skin from sunlight. So hence, I think, can we build a moisturizer with SPF, right? That's something which we did. Even we've recently launched a lot of makeup line. For example, we did a foundation with SPF plus skincare, like say, can we do basic barrier support ingredient like say an niacinamide and build it with sunscreen, right? So I think multifunctional product is the way to go, which ultimately consumers will end up buying. So if you see even wide in the market, let's forget for a second skincare, beauty, all these the entire segment, go out and see when you see words like 2-in-1, 3-in-1, consumers are always attracted because they always think that 2-3 of my issues are sorted with one product, right? So I think that's what actually works in long term, and all other things that you see today are just fads. It comes, these are like fast fashion in your language, right? It comes and it goes, but it doesn't stay. But what really stays is those non-negotiable steps that I mentioned, that moisturizing and protection is non-negotiable. That will stay. And even treatment for that matter, it will come and go in your life, but moisturization and protection will stay in your life. So hence, I think focus on those and build multifunctional product, I think, is how we are,
But that's such a good advice, because now every time I'm gonna shop for skincare for myself, those are actually two things which are the main pain points of every single person.
Absolutely.
Beyond that, obviously, we can end up getting something that we are influenced by, but in moisturizing and protection is something everyone wants to do, right? Even if you're not doing, your mom is always telling you that, like, mom, as a kid, I used to not moisturize at all. Like, till college, I feel I used to not, till 5 years back, and my mom used to keep telling me, you don't moisturize. So, you always hear these two words. No matter what. No matter what trend comes, goes, these two things are, I think, the foundation. 100% bang on. I'm going to think like that next time I'm shopping. Is it helping me moisturize?
In fact, being a skincare company, we have this rule even now at Earth Rhythm, where, we have a dedicated person who comes and gives you sunscreen every 2 hours to reapply, right?
Wow.
I think that's, I find it very difficult myself being in the same industry, because, you don't really get to do all of these things on a daily routine. Imagine 2 hours once you just keep on applying sunscreen, leaving all your work. But then that's a reminder.
Yeah.
Being in this game, you need to ensure that you're actually, sitting, applying, and, ensuring that you're protected. I mean, things like these sometimes could be a little bit of an overdo, but ultimately the basics remain the same, right? Whether you do it 10 times a day or you do it twice a day, the basics remain the same.
Yeah, for sure. Something really interesting is also that I think Earthism also does a lot of influencer marketing, right? We also do that a lot at House of Chicken Curry. So I was just like wondering for myself, because when we started the brand, like 3 years back, I was doing influencer marketing probably myself, like, reaching out to whoever I could on Instagram, cold DMs, everything. And obviously, like with clothing, it's very, I think, a lot easier because people are willing to accept that, okay, we have this occasion, we'll wear. With skincare, number one, how do you convince them to use the product? Because there's fear that, will this suit my skin or not? And the second thing, it cannot be not authentic at all.
Right.
Because someone cannot be recommending something that does not, prove to have the effects it states.
Right.
So how does that actually work? Because that must be a challenge, according to me, right?
It is, right? So when it comes to food and skincare, there's a lot of preference when it comes to consumers, right? Very strong preference. And they have types, right? For example, I don't know the influencer who's approaching me has an oily skin or a dry skin, and I just can't give one product and say, this is my hero product and you have to use this. I can't do that, right? So hence, we classify influencer, specifically marketing on, based on influencer program into 3 categories. One is visibility campaigns, which we do. The second one is, reviews that we do. And the third one is basically, probably reaching out to celebrity influencers to get endorsement, right? So these 3 categories which we have clearly, bifurcated. Now in visibility campaign, we really don't know who the influencer is. So, in the sense that we don't know him or her personally, and we have no clue whether the product is going to work for them or not. Okay. So in such a scenario, we send out the product with a detailed list of, benefits of the product, and their role over there is only to build visibility for Earth Rhythm. So in that case, they're not using the product. They just need to apply it on their hand and probably show the texture, show, the benefits, talk about the benefits. Say, for example, if it is ceramides, talk about ceramides, tell consumers what ceramide does, and then show the texture and, explain whom is it for. And that's all, that's visibility campaign.
So it's more reach through them, basically.
Yeah, that's about it. Reviews, on the other hand, is where we spend money a little bit more and we talk to them and we understand what works for them. We know, for example, somebody with acne that we have identified as an influencer, we talk to them and we tell them, hey, can you use our salicylic acid? Can you use it for a month? Can you document your journey of using Earth Rhythm salicylic acid in these 30 days? And then if you're satisfied, can you please post it? So a lot of influencers come forward and try using it for 30 days and they record the journey and they put it out there. Now, these are realistic, reviews and feedback. Today's scenario, Akriti, I don't think, a lot of brands are even wanting celebrity to come on board and endorse the products. Gone are the days when, Shah Rukh Khan was endorsing Lux and people were buying, right? Still, it might work for an FMCG brand, but for digital brands like us, especially, we are dealing with skintellectual consumers. Right? When I say skintellectual, these are consumers who understand everything. They read the label. They ask questions. They are like, what is this? What is this? Why is there? It says sulfate. What is this? So they read and they understand. They consume a lot of content and they're very well aware. So hence for us, it becomes even more critical to ensure that we're working with these kind of ratings and reviews, which builds, a credibility, for consumers, in terms of product. And the third one, of course, is like I said, celebrity endorsement, where you always, it has a mass reach, a mass appeal, where you try to send it to a celebrity like Alia Bhatt endorsing Dew moisturizer, right? It went viral overnight. I think that's that's where celebrity endorsements come into place. So I think influencers overall, I think today they've taken over the market. I still remember when we started off, right? Influencer community back in 2015 was very, very small. Very small. I think COVID 2020 and 2021, recently a friend of mine who is a travel influencer, he was telling me that, Harini, we have a term called COVID influencers. So a lot of influencers actually were born during COVID.
Like we're COVIDpreneurs.
Like
my mom and I.
Exactly. So COVIDpreneurs.
We're COVIDpreneurs.
So like that, they were COVID influencers. So there's like a huge, a bucket of influencers today. And you name it, you have someone who's doing only vegan food, someone who's doing only, vegetarian food, someone who's only doing, food, fashion, travel, you name it and you have an influencer.
I think very interesting to see that, how like now digital first brands and brands with a community, which you guys I think have a strong community, really strong community on Instagram. Same goes for us. We don't have a choice but to be authentic.
Right.
The day we decided that we want to be digital first, and this is the route we're taking, we did not have an option beyond that.
Right.
Gone are the days when you would see TV ads where the washing powder is saying that you wash your clothes and you'll be white. Like we can't make those claims.
Absolutely.
We don't have the privilege to make those claims, and I think it's changing for everyone. Even bigger brands today who are not digital first are now moving towards authenticity, because the customer is just getting smarter by the day. People have so much information, so much access to like competition, Google reviews, Reddit, YouTube reviews. Like they can go and do whatever they want, right? Like your brand, the day you decide that, okay, now I have a digital presence, it's out of your hands.
Yes.
You've left it to the consumers to decide whether this will be accepted or not accepted. So I think that is really interesting now to see, and how different industries, how like in beauty, the challenges to create that authenticity is very different to clothing.
Yes.
Right? In clothing, I think the biggest change that has come is that when we started in 2020, like you said, in 2020, there were a lot of these influencers coming up. We started right then. So the biggest advantage that we had, that we could build the community a lot faster with barter collaborations. Like, we could do gifting, a lot of new people coming up. So we just tried, like, even if they didn't have followers, we sort of built a community with them, that it's fine, just give us some piece of content, because we didn't have the budget when we started. Versus today, when someone is asking me for an advice that, how did you do it? We want to do it, but we don't have the budget. And I was like, I'm sorry. Today, you need to have a budget.
Yeah.
Because the industry is grown.
Yes.
Today, we are also paying, because the industry has grown so much that now this is what, they've started monetizing it.
Yes.
When I started, I got lucky in a way. The influencer industry also just started.
Yeah.
So both of us were working very well.
It's called riding the crust, right?
Yeah.
So basically, you were actually, having that kind of a growth along with the entire community.
So
growing.
we were both growing together.
Yes.
And they were supporting us and we were supporting them. Like it was like a mutual thing.
I'll tell you something. The way it works is, Akriti, digital brands, like you said, rely on being very realistic in front of consumers, right? And the key to it is called personalization, right?
Yeah.
For them, why would someone leave the L'Oreals of the world and come to Earth Rhythm and buy a product? Do you think that L'Oreal would not have spent so much amount of money on their R&D? No, not at all. In fact, they're even more advanced when it comes to such, putting money into, safety of consumers. Still, people want to trust smaller brands because of the personalization that comes into place, right?
Yeah.
So which means that consumers are wanting to be heard, wanting to come and interact with the brand and get that first-hand feel of buying directly from the brand. That's a very, very big thing for consumers, right? So how many of us actually, we have bought an FMCG product down the aisle and we have a complaint and we don't even know how to reach out to the company. Like, for example, have you ever bought a toothpaste and had a complaint and actually turned and see what is the customer care number and then called them? Never. We've never done that. Whereas in digital brands, the minute a customer is not satisfied, they know they can go to Instagram and they can write, they can reach out, they know they can write an email, they know they will get a refund. So they're secure that way. I think the entire digital space has grown so well and so powerful, and which is more consumer enabled right now, which makes it even more, how do I tell you, even more powerful for a digital space in itself, right? The ecosystem, whether it's an influencer or whether it's the brand or the consumer, they become really powerful tools right now. And I think that's a very interesting thing, and that's how I think, a lot of digital brands today, I think we have brands like mushrooming, like every day there are 100 brands just in beauty which is coming up every single day.
And another interesting thing is that obviously, like what you said is completely right. Like the feedback loop has become so much shorter. But I think this is what, like, we would read about like brands coming up in the States like 10 years back, where there were brands in every industry. Say pet foods, and like, you name a niche, there was a brand. India is going through that massively right now, because you name a niche and there's a brand coming up.
Absolutely.
It's not just the broader categories.
Yeah.
So within skincare also, like people have found their particular niches, and you know, they've like literally blown up that niche.
Yes.
And even we're a niche brand, you know. So within Indian wear, like we're chicken curry specific. And we found that one little niche that was unorganized within Indian wear, ethnic wear.
Yeah.
And we have kind of tried to transform that into a more organized solution for people, right? More accessible to people. So it's actually, and there's like sleep company and like mattress brands, things you would never, so many perfume brands, which is so experiential in nature, which I would never in my life imagine someone is shopping online.
But that's the power of, you know, internet.
It's amazing.
You know, recently I saw a perfume brand which is going, you know, just kept on coming on my Instagram feed. And actually I was tempted to buy it. You know why? Because the influencer was so beautifully explaining the notes, saying that I've never seen a vanilla, you know, fragrance like this ever. And, you know, that feel from her words actually was tempting me to figure out and see, oh, I like vanilla. Maybe I will like this, you know. That's the power of social media and the, you know, the personalization and the communication which actually reaches so powerfully to consumers. I think I think we are at the right time right now in terms of, you know, how digital brands are scaling.
Of digital transformation happening, and a lot of exciting opportunities in any, like, you know, I would say space you see today. Like there is immense amount of opportunity for anyone who's looking to start out.
Right.
So now that you've completed, I think 5 years?
Yes.
5 years
yes.
into business,
Easily.
right? And you have 2 kids, and how does that like work? Because I'm married recently. How does it work for you? And what do you think? Like there may be a lot of strengths, I think, that being a mother brings to being an entrepreneur that makes being an entrepreneur a lot easier, because there are certain innate, you know, capabilities that brings, and vice versa. Like a lot of entrepreneurial capabilities applied at home. So how do you manage, and I just want to know out of curiosity.
So I think for me, since I started, you know, started this company after, you know, getting married, after being a homemaker, I think for me it was very empowering, right? I really wanted to come out and do something on my own. And for the longest time, when I survived from 2015 to 18 as a homegrown entrepreneur, my dad wasn't living with me. He was back in Chennai. So I didn't have the ability or the strength to go out of the house to start something on my own, simply because, you know, you're stuck, you know, with your, you know, motherly duties inside the house, right? Specifically, my older son has a disability called Down syndrome. So India is a country where still, you know, you don't really normalize mompreneurs or moms going out and working full time. I'll give you one example. Even today, when I step into most meetings, specifically when I'm traveling, not in Delhi, but when I'm traveling out of Delhi, when I'm in meetings, the first thing that they ask me is, "Oh, you're traveling, so who's taking care of your kids?" That's the first thing that comes up, right? Would you actually just think back and see? Would you ask a man who stepped into a meeting, who's outside in a different city? Would that be the first question to a man asking, "Hey, who's looking after your kids because you're here for a meeting?" No, because by default we think it's motherly duties to be around the kids 24/7, and hence I went through my own phase of, you know, guilt tripping. I had my own, when I first stepped out of the house, I still remember my first office was 100 meters away from my house. And the reason why I took that office space was simply because if there was an emergency, I will go home. That was my only funda, right? And you know, how many times did I go back home? I've gone through that phase where my neighbor would call me and say, "Harini, Bhargav is standing in the balcony." I would just rush back home. So all these things, I have gone through that phase. And then I realized that while I was a homegrown entrepreneur, even while I was sitting at home and, you know, doing things, you know, at home, literally sitting out of home, I figured that, you know, most of my time was spent inside that tiny little studio that I had created inside my house. The one room that I had, that was my world. And I had no work-life balance. I would probably sit and do it till 2 a.m. in the night. Whenever I got time, I would do it. As against when I stepped out, I started, initially it was tough. Initially it was a journey where I was, you know, battling, you know, whether I was doing right, whether I was doing wrong. I went through my own guilt phases. I've missed a lot of school meetings, and I felt very miserable about the fact that, you know, I missed a school meeting. But at the end of the day, I also also learned how to prioritize my work versus my personal life, right? I think today I have come to that zone where I value quality versus quantity, right? Even if I'm spending 2 hours at home, like I reach home these days only at 8:39, and by say 10:30 my kids are off to bed. That 1.5 hours of me spending time at home is qualitative time, where I sit with them, I have dinner with them, I have, I do their homework along with them, and that's qualitative spending time with me. And what's the point if I was sitting at home back in the day when I was a home-based entrepreneur, sitting at home and making products? My kids would still be sitting in the hall and watching television, and I would be stuck inside this room making soaps. It doesn't really change anything, right? So I think it's very vital to understand quality versus quantity, and it doesn't happen overnight. Let me be honest, you will have your own phase of guilt tripping, going through that phase, specifically when you are having dependence, when you have kids with you, and you need to understand. That's one. Number two, probably cooking is one. I think is innate. For me, being again a South Indian, we never really had that concept of having a full-time help at home, right? So I figured when I first time got a help at home, and I when my house was sorted, that gives you a lot of peace of mind. I tell this to a lot of women who are wanting to go out and work. I tell them only one advice. I tell them, ensure that your house is in order at all times. Now, how do you ensure how your house is in order? It can be through a couple of ways. You might be a person who have an extended family who can help you. Like your in-laws can come and stay with you. Your mother can come and stay with you. So ensure, if you don't have that support system, build that support system. Get a help at home. Ensure that your children are never looking out for you. Everything is taken care of. That way you are peaceful outside the house. I think these kind of things are very important and critical to concentrate what I'm doing. So these days I travel 4 days, 7 days. And when I'm traveling, I'm peaceful because I know they're taken care of, and they are actually fed. All their needs are met. And I actually, even when I travel these days, I don't really regret or feel bad or guilty. And I think I've come through that journey.
You've been through that. And you finally reached a peaceful stage now.
Yes.
And I agree. I feel having someone at home who can be that support, whether it's family or, you get additional help, always helps. Because I had my mom before I was married, and now I live with my in-laws. So I have my mother-in-law now. And I always just say that if I didn't have the two of them, I don't think I could go out and work.
Absolutely.
Because there's just constant stress of groceries at home, food at home. What am I eating? What am I eating for my next meal? What is the family eating for the next meal? And the fact that always at my house, my mother helped me with this. And when I, moved into the new house, my mother-in-law has taken care of everything, along with help. But still, she's just taken that burden off my chest. So I'm so at peace that when I'm home, I'm actually not stressing. I'm enjoying at home. When I'm at work, I'm not stressing about home. So that just helps so much versus if we don't. And also, I think a lot has to do with asking.
Yes.
A lot of women don't ask. I think it's very important for us to realize that we need to ask.
Yes.
Whether it's my mom or my mother-in-law or additional help, or the fact that I want some additional help at home. Sometimes we feel we can manage it all, but we really can't.
Yes.
I think I've tried a lot of times to manage a lot of things, but comes down to two things. दो ही चीजें एक साथ हो सकती हैं. I think in general, you managed it really well. Now you finally told us, how you've come through the journey, and I'm sure your kids must be really happy and excited when you come back from work as well, and you go to work, and it's really inspiring to see women actually achieve that balance, because especially I'm really young right now, and I've just started my business journey and also just gotten married, and these are the questions which are thrown at me everywhere I go.
By nature, women are like to take responsibilities, right? I think it's innate. It's an innate ability for women, and we women try to sometimes, like you said, we kind of try to balance between a lot of things, but we also need to understand that like I said, building that balance has to be extremely, understanding, drawing that line between your professional life versus your, these days I've brought a rule inside my house that I tell my dad that no office conversation comes inside the house. So if we fight in office. We don't fight at home. So I think that's very important. And support system, I think we have to give due credit to support system when it comes to women specifically, because I think in my case at least, I was almost 35 when I 34 when I started my company, right? At that age, being a mom to two children, it required a lot more courage, right?
Yeah.
Somebody who's gonna, believe in you and push you, right? I think
Yeah.
that for women, a lot of time we need to identify who is that source of inspiration who's gonna give you that push at home. I think that's very critical. And then when you find that person, you don't let go of that person in your life, right?
Yeah.
You catch hold of that person and keep him with you or keep her with you forever.
Yeah. I think it's super important, as much as, like, we see a lot of things changing. We see a lot of women now prioritizing their careers, their financial goals, coming out and speaking about it a lot more. But I think society at large together has to bring that change. Like, there needs to be more families supporting it.
Yes.
More girls being married into families who support it.
Right.
More husbands supporting it. I think partners play a very, very important role. Their families, your own parents. Like, I think realizing that if a girl is being educated, she's not being educated to finally get married and not do a job.
Yes.
Like the fact that she spent her entire life studying, probably going to the best colleges, even going abroad, but that all of a sudden, all of that becomes zero when she's married. So I think it just overall everyone at large understanding that girls can dream as well, and they have the right to dream, and they can dream and achieve a lot more. So that's what I think matters at the end of the day. So now that we're coming towards the end of the podcast, what is that one advice that you would like to give to young women, who would want to start something, who are aspiring to start something, or have already started and then need that additional push? What would be your one advice to them?
I think invest in people. That is the first and foremost advice that I would give. It can be people in any form, right? Even in your company, you always have whatever venture that you're getting into, right? It need not be a company. It can be even a small, service-based business that you're doing. Invest in people who will back you up. So in my company, I have 5 or 6 set of people whom I will never trade them for anything. Like, they are like my pillars. They're like my right hand, left hand, up hand, down hand, everything. And that is very important because they are like, the brain, the heart, to function completely, a human requires a lot more functions, right? So that you need to identify. So while many people think that, people come and go, so you keep getting resources, but it's extremely critical that you build and invest in those few resources who will actually stand by you at all times. So while you are building something, keep on identifying. That's number one. Number 2, don't try to do everything alone. Always look for a co-founder. Now, this co-founder is a very tricky thing. Some people like you and me are blessed to have our own family, but there are people who start with friends. And when you're starting with friends, look for, like-mindedness people. Ensure that you have a very good rapport with that person, but don't do it alone. Because when you do it alone, entrepreneurial journey is a very lonely journey, right? As you keep growing in this journey, it becomes very lonely at a point. There are times today where I feel that I can't share certain things as much as I shared, maybe 2-3 years ago, right? So I think since it gets lonely, you need to have someone with whom you can share it with. So hence, I would say that, always ensure that you're not doing it alone and get someone. Third is, entrepreneurial journey is very, how do I tell you? It's a rough patch. There are ups, there are downs. One day you're completely happy, one day you're completely sad and you're down, things are not working your way. But I think what really matters is if you have a passion to what you have built, you will never give up. So I think always invest and start doing something which was your passion. That way you will never give up even during. So a lot of businesses I've seen crashing because they started it as a business and it was not something that actually they believed in or there was passion in it, right?
Yeah.
Those businesses can crumble much faster. Yeah. But where there is passion involved, you will find ways to make it work because you don't want to give up. You don't want that idea to give up because it was your passion, right? So I hence try to always build ideas on your passion so it will grow.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That's really inspiring. Just one word if you had to describe how you have managed to weave your way to success. And what is that one word you would use to describe? your journey?
I think I'd call it time management. That's the most important thing at this, after a point, right?
Yeah.
I think for me, I'm balancing a lot of things at this point of time. Mom, being an entrepreneur, sometimes being a daughter, and there's so many things that I'm juggling at this point of time. And I think time, and above everything, Akriti, there's something called self.
Yeah.
Right, which is very, very important. I think I'm managing all these things together. For me, time is one key word which I constantly remember, and I think that's what navigates me to my way forward.
Yeah.
Because I put timelines, I put time sense to everything that I do around me these days. I think that's the key.
Yeah. Thanks so much. It was great having you, and I'm sure we all of us have a lot to learn from, and super inspiring to know your journey. Thank you so much for taking out the time.
Thank you, Akriti. It was really lovely talking to you, and thank you so much.